You blinked. Your heart beat one more time. And in that exact second, something started inside your body that no one around you could see, that you couldn't feel, that every medical instrument in the room would take 4 full seconds to even begin detecting. And 7 days later, in some of your cells, it was still happening. Most people think death is a switch. One moment you're here, electrical, conscious, alive. The next moment, off. But that's not what the physics shows. That's not what happens inside the architecture of your cells, your neurons, your mitochondria when your heart stops. What actually happens is stranger, more violent, and more prolonged than anything you were told in school or saw in a movie. Death is not an instant. It's a cascade. And your body doesn't go quietly. Let's start at second 0. Your heart stops. Not slowly, not in some poetic fade. It just stops. The sinoatrial node, the cluster of cells that has been firing electrical pulses every 0.8 seconds for your entire life, goes silent. No more rhythm, no more contraction. And the moment that happens, your brain receives a distress signal unlike anything it has ever processed. Because your brain is expensive. It weighs 1.4 kilograms, about 2% of your total body mass, but it consumes 20% of all the oxygen your blood delivers. 20%. And now, with your heart stopped, that oxygen delivery has ended. Completely. Your brain doesn't have a reserve tank. It doesn't store oxygen the way your muscles store glycogen. It lives second to second on what your blood brings. And in 4 seconds, that debt comes due. For seconds. That's how long it takes for you to lose consciousness once your heart stops. Not because your brain is shutting down, because it's being starved. But hey, race the part no one tells you, the part that changes the entire narrative of what death is. In those last few seconds before you lose consciousness, your brain doesn't dim. It doesn't quietly power off like a laptop going to sleep. It explodes. In 2023, Dr. Jima Borjajan and her team at the University of Michigan recorded the brain activity of 4 patients whose hearts had stopped and who had been removed from life support. What they measured using high-density EEG arrays stunned the entire field of neuroscience. In the seconds immediately after cardiac arrest, the brain produced a massive, coordinated surge of gamma wave activity. Gamma waves. These are oscillations between 25 and 100 Hz, associated with the highest known states of conscious processing. Focused attention, vivid dreaming, moments of insight, transcendence. The dying brain wasn't fading. It was firing at levels never seen in ordinary waking life. Theta waves synchronized with gamma. Connectivity between distant brain regions spiked. For a few seconds, your brain becomes more active, more synchronized, more intensely aware than it has ever been. Think about that. This is likely the neurological signature of near-death experiences. The tunnel of light, the sense of leaving your body, the overwhelming peace. Your brain, in its final conscious moments, may be generating the single most vivid experience of your entire existence. And you want to remember it, because the systems that form memory, the hippocampus, the cortical loops that encode experience into long-term storage, they require oxygen too. And by second 8, they're offline. But that's just your brain. Your body has its own script. At around the 1-minute mark, your muscles begin to release. All of them. The autonomic tension that kept your sphincters closed, that held your posture, that maintained a baseline level of tone across every striated fiber, it's gone. The electrical signals from your spinal cord have stopped. Calcium ions that were being actively pumped out of muscle cells to keep them relaxed, those pumps require ATP, and ATP production has stopped. So calcium floods back in. But not enough to cause contraction. Just enough to remove all resistance. And your muscles go slack. Completely. This is where the dignity of death becomes uncomfortable. Your bladder releases. Your bowels release. It's not dramatic. It's mechanical. The physics of sphincter control requires energy, and that energy is gone. Your cells don't know you're dead yet. This is the gradient, the place where the binary idea of life and death falls apart. Because for minutes, sometimes hours, after your heart stops, individual cells scattered across your body are still metabolically active, still trying, still running the same biochemical loops they've been running since you were born. In 2019, Dr. Nanad Seston and his team at Yale University took the brains of pigs that had been dead for 4 hours, and restored circulation using a synthetic blood substitute called Bex. They didn't bring the pigs back to life. There was no consciousness, no awareness, no integrated brain function. But individual neurons started firing again. Glial cells resumed metabolic activity. Cells consumed glucose, produced ATP, maintained ion gradients. For 36 hours, the tissue was alive. Not the organism, the tissue. The boundary between life and death is not a line. It's a slow biochemical collapse, zone by zone, cell type by cell type, and some zones hold out longer than others. Now we go deeper. At the genetic level, something truly strange begins. In 2016, researchers led by Dr. Peter Noble and Dr. Alex Potsikoff published a study in Open Biology that analyzed gene expression in the hours and days after death. They worked with tissue samples from recently deceased mice and fish, and what they found violated every assumption about what happens when an organism dies. Hundreds of genes increased their activity after death. Not decreased, increased. Some peaked at 24 hours post-mortem. Some stayed active for 4 days. These weren't random genes. They were specific. Genes involved in stress response. Genes involved in immune activation. Genes involved in inflammation. And most disturbingly, genes that are normally only active during fetal development. Developmental genes. Genes that help an embryo organize tissues, that control cell differentiation in the womb. Genes that have been silent since before you were born. They switch back on the moment you die. As if your body, at the very end, is attempting to become something new. Why? No one knows. The leading hypothesis is that without the regulatory oversight of a functioning organism, without the brain, without circulating hormones, without homeostatic feedback loops, some genes are no longer suppressed. They default to on. But the fact remains, your genome doesn't stop the second your heart does. Keeps running its code. For hours. For days. In the dark. At the 4-hour mark, rigor mortis begins. You've heard the term, but erase the physics. Muscle contraction happens when myosin heads pull on actin filaments, and that pulling requires energy in the form of ATP. But relaxation, letting go, also requires ATP. You need energy to contract, and you need energy to release. When you run out of ATP entirely, your muscles lock in whatever position they were in. Not because they contracted, because they can't let go. The myosin heads are chemically bonded to actin, and without ATP to break that bond, they stay stuck. Your entire body becomes rigid. This is not reversible. It will hold for 12 to 48 hours, depending on temperature, muscle mass, and how much glycogen was left in your muscles when you died. Eventually, enzymes begin breaking down the actin and myosin filaments themselves, and the rigidity fades. But for a day or more, you are chemically frozen. Let that settle. By day 3, something ancient takes over. The bacteria. You've been carrying roughly 39 trillion bacterial cells inside your body your entire life, most of them in your gut. They weren't passengers. They were partners. They helped you digest food, synthesize vitamins, regulate your immune system. You needed them to live. And now, with your immune system offline, with the chemical barriers that kept them confined to your intestines breaking down, they do what all living things do when resources open up. They spread. They begin consuming you from the inside, producing gases, methane, hydrogen sulfide, cadaverine, putrescine, breaking down proteins into amino acids, rupturing cell membranes, liquefying tissues. This process has a name: autolysis, self-digestion. But it's not just bacterial. Your own enzymes, the ones that spent your life carefully breaking down food in controlled environments, are now leaking out of dead cells and breaking down everything. No regulation, no feedback, just chemistry. The same bacteria that were essential to your life are now essential to your death. Without them, you wouldn't decompose. You wouldn't return nutrients to the soil. The cycle wouldn't close. You needed them to live, and you need them to die. Within weeks, you are no longer a body. You're a distribution network. The nitrogen in your muscles leaches into the ground and feeds the roots of plants. The calcium in your bones dissolves slowly, over years, becoming part of the mineral layer of soil. The iron in your hemoglobin, the iron that carried oxygen to every cell, oxidizes and disperses. Some of it will be taken up by fungi, some by trees. Some will wash into groundwater and travel for miles before becoming part of something else. You don't vanish, you transform. Every atom in your body right now has existed for billions of years. It was forged in the core of a star that exploded long before the sun existed. It drifted through space. It became part of a planet. It cycled through oceans, through rock, through millions of other organisms before it became you. And after you die, it will continue. Long after your name is forgotten, long after everyone who knew you is gone. The atoms that make up your hand, your heart, your brain, they'll still exist. In a tree, in the ocean, in a person not yet born. So erase the question no one asks. If the atoms that make you were never really yours, if they existed for 13 billion years before you and will exist for trillions more after, if your cells keep trying for hours after your heart stops, if your genes wake up one last time in the dark, what exactly is it that dies? Your heart stops. Your brain fires one last surge of gamma waves more intense than anything you experienced while alive. Your cells hold on longer than anyone thought possible. Your bacteria, your partners, take over and return you to the earth. The atoms you borrowed for 80 years go back into circulation. Death is not the end of your matter. It's not even the end of your function. It's the moment you stop being one unified thing and become everything else. Not spiritual, physics,